So welcome in. Thank you all. This is like the first time in a while that we've done something where it's like everybody together. So we're working with some camera and stuff, so hopefully you can see everything. Um, Thank you all for being here and joining us. My name is Scarlett Odell. I'm an education specialist at Foundations, Inc. Welcome to our Beyond the Conference webinar series. Today we are going to be talking with Vanessa and Shanika about some questions from BSH. We're really excited to talk about all of that with you today. We are going to be getting started shortly, but before we do, I want to give you a little bit of background information on Foundations. So I'm going to be posting a few things in the chat so you can follow along, check them out at your leisure. And leave everyone. There we go. So right there, you can access that. That will take you to our website where you can check out everything that Foundations has to offer. We are a national education nonprofit located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators. We work across the school day with after-school programs, schools, districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. If you're interested in learning more about Foundations, you can follow us on social media, and we'll drop that in the chat for you in just a second. And you may already know us from our signature professional learning experience, the Beyond School Hours Conference, that's held each February. In 2027, we will be in New Orleans for our 30th anniversary, and we hope that you will join us there. So I'm going to introduce our panelists, I guess you can say, for today, Vanessa Atkins and Shanika Peck. If you would like to introduce yourselves to everyone.
Certainly. I am Vanessa Atkins, in case you didn't know that already. And I serve as our Director of Professional Learning here at Foundations, Inc. I have a varied background that ranges from teaching both high school and at the university level, and then running out-of-school time programs that are both university and school-based. In my background, I taught chemistry. I was a cheer coach. And love the work that we do and the ability to stay connected with all of you. My most recent work is around partnerships and building partnerships with community-based organizations. And I'm really excited to share a little bit with you from what we heard at Beyond School. I hope that you all were at Beyond School Hours, but if you weren't, we'll give you a little sneak peek into it. Shanika?
That was a great introduction, Vanessa. My name is Shanika Peck. I'm Director of Career Programs at Foundations, Inc. I started my work out, my work in OST started as a youth. I was actually a part of the Boys and Girls Club in Trenton, New Jersey, a part of the Keystone Phoenix Club. And so I got a taste of what life was like outside of the classroom. And so, of course, went to school, majored in education, and taught at a year-round extended day boarding school for youth as young as 3 years old all the way up to 8th grade. Worked a lot with the parents, worked a lot with the community in connecting these families with resources, especially for folks who were involved in the residential life program. And then from there, I started my work with Foundations and really dug deep into OST. So we operated some career programs for youth from 12 to 24. I was able to work with my high schoolers, especially in the classroom teaching, our babies compared to the high schoolers and our 20-plus-year-olds. And so I was able to pick up on a lot of great things, not just from program practices, but also how to manage numerous grants, right? That's always at the top of our list. And now I get a chance to oversee capacity building supports for those youth development programs, as well as 21st Century. So I'm happy to be here with Vanessa and Scarlett. I'm excited.
Well, thank you both for the lovely introduction. So today we are, like we said, we're going to be talking about some questions that we heard, we saw across the board come through at Beyond School Hours. And we are going to be talking in a few different categories. So the first category we're going to be talking about is youth belonging and engagement. The next will be partnerships with schools, families, and communities. Following that, workforce and staffing. and then funding, sustainability, and advocacy. So as we go through each of those sections, we encourage you to drop your questions in the chat, and I'll be monitoring. That way we can try to get your question answered. So we are going to start with youth belonging and engagement. So if you have any questions related to that, go ahead and drop them in, and I will start off with a few questions we commonly heard was this first one. So, what does it mean to create spaces where every youth feels seen and safe, particularly when schedules and programming often take precedence?
So I can start. What I will say is the reason that all of our programs exist is the youth. And so keeping that at the forefront of everything that we do is going to help us to remain centered. But the other pieces that I think will help us is including things like voice and choice, right? Giving youth those opportunities, those structured opportunities to give us input, and not just, they like this or they like that, but literally asking them for their thoughts and suggestions, providing in the course of your programming, literally, if it's a restorative circle that you'd like to do, if it's some kind of feedback circle that you'd like to use, whatever it is that you think will give your youth and your program the opportunity to lift their voice in a space where they feel comfortable. And that's the key piece, right? Building those relationships so that young people feel like when they speak that they have the freedom to do so without fear, and then giving them the space once they do speak to then add some more thought and give some contributions to the planning. So not just collecting their ideas, but actually incorporating them as you're planning. And then that kind of lifts some of the load off of us as leaders, right? It gives us a little bit more opportunity to lean into what the students are looking for, but then also to look to them for thoughts and ideas about what should happen next, as opposed to us, trying to figure it out or guess based on what we're seeing and feeling. Now, what that also means is we have to be really intentional about the questions that we ask our youth, right? Just asking youth, what do you want to do? Or what are the kinds of activities you'd like is not going to be a question that's going to, in most cases, get you all of the details that you need. And so you may need to start with, these are 3 options that I'd love for us to explore on this particular topic, and then giving them a choice in that way. And then when they recognize that their voice means something, right, that you're listening, that you're incorporating their feedback into your planning, that really encourages them to continue to speak up and add productive feedback to what they're saying, instead of things like, I'm bored, I don't want to do this, I'm not interested, right? So just give them that kind of space so that they're able to then make positive contributions, and you're directing what they're saying, as opposed to just kind of leaving it open for them to just say how they feel in the moment, which is also important. You do want to hear what they're feeling, but again, you can structure that too. It could be with a circle, it could be with a check-in, it could be, with journaling, with writing activities, but there are a wide range. And I know I'm rattling these all off. But I'm hoping, as you're hearing things that you'd like to apply, that you're, jotting it down, making a mental note, whatever makes sense for you, because we do want you to be able to walk away from this session with things that you could put to use right away. Shanika?
That was great. I'm actually going to add to that. So
Please do.
I have a little bit to add. I think it's really important for us to lean into what makes OST so unique, right? Yes, we do have to be mindful and intentional about our program schedules and agenda. I know for the most part, most programs are probably concerned about, enrollment for youth, right? Getting them into the program space, but really leaning into the uniqueness of OST, right? Once youth are in your space, we're thinking about physical and emotional safety here, right? So yes, we need to meet the physical needs first, because that's our basic need to address, right? But also, how are we allowing them to feel seen, right? And sometimes it's not asking them a question. It just may be, hey, I see you. It's good to have you in programming today. really providing a space, and this may be done, like Vanessa said, during a circle, right? Talking about or having a space to be vulnerable, having your program set up to be the space where youth can take risks, right? In their thinking and their feelings, and having the trusted adults there to help them communicate their needs, right? So we're thinking about, their fear, any failure that they may be experiencing, understanding their identity, right? A lot of us are working with, especially the folks who are working with the older youth population, right? They're in a place where they are more in tune with what is happening around them. And so if they don't have the space to communicate these things, especially during the school day, because it's very, very structured, that's where the uniqueness of our OST programs come in, right? Yes, you have your program schedule and you built in the, enrichment and everything like that, but you definitely have the ability to pivot a little bit, right? The youth who actually need to feel seen, they need to have that space and know that they have the space to share those things with you. And then you listed so many things. Right, there are a lot of different strategies, and then what, on top of that, about like, different agendas and things like that, but I feel like we also should think about, and this ties into emotional safety, right? We also should think about what it means to be vulnerable and how to communicate that in different spaces. And so sometimes our OC programs are the spaces where we can solve those problems. And so if youth are coming to you with these problems, or you're collecting feedback from you to inform your program, right, you want to help them learn how to communicate those things and practice them. And so you collecting feedback and implementing it, but also communicating to youth how you've implemented that feedback is definitely another way to help them feel seen and safe. I think that's it.
Okay.
I think
For now.
I think a lot of the things that you both shared, with all these different things, programming, how that might take precedent. I think what a simple thing that a lot of providers and educators can do is simply just showing that you care. Like that can be like, that's the smallest thing, genuinely showing enthusiasm. If you've got like little Jordan over here coming in to tell you about this thing he saw online or this video game, you may not know what it is, he's talking about it, but showing enthusiasm and excitement with what they're excited about. That right there helps them to feel seen, and that, wow, they actually care about what I'm invested in.
And then remembering it, right?
Yeah.
So as you're doing your planning and you're executing what you know you have to do, incorporating those small little bits, where you might use a sports themed example or soccer themed example if you know that young people in your groups or your program like soccer, right? Or if there's something exciting happening at their school, mentioning that in the course of your activity. All of those things, like you said, they show that you care, and they let young people know without you disrupting what you have planned, right? That you're paying attention, that this is a space that's designed especially for them, right? Not just a random generic experience, but an experience for them. And it really gives young people that, exactly what you said, that sense that they've been heard and that they're cared for. Love that. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, Scarlett, because you actually maybe think about teaching moments, right? We always think about how can we teach our youth or how we can provide instructions, but we can always flip that around. What are our youth able to teach us? And giving them an opportunity to, catch us up to speed with what's happening.
What's trending.
You know what I mean? The language is being used, right? What should we not say in programming anymore? Because it made sense to, in our generation, but it's totally different in our younger generation. So absolutely. And to add to that, right, I also think about staff who may not have the language just yet to communicate with youth, right? And that's fine, right? It's not always about, like, tell me, let me dig into your life a little bit. Let me just keep digging and asking these questions. Sometimes our youth just need us to show up, right? So if they have other commitments, right, them inviting you to those commitments, right? I think about our youth who are involved in sports, like you mentioned, right? Show up to a game, even if it's a chess tournament and you have no idea what's going on. Be there, right? You should also be seen so that youth feel seen.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so glad you said that because I found myself at all types of events. I've been at orchestra events, all city orchestra. I've been at plays. So absolutely. And I have no children in any of these things, but I'm there supporting the young people in our program. And it means so much, just that one moment in their lives to say that this person that's a part of another aspect of my life showed up for me. So yeah, that's an amazing point to me. And again goes back to what you said, Scarlett. It makes them feel cared for. It makes them feel seen, heard, right? And really invested. You show you're invested in them, and then you'll get that in return. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We've got another one for youth belonging and engagement. So, how can programs serve as a brave space for youth to navigate their worlds and develop the social, emotional, and civic skills necessary for today's world?
Brave space. So I actually attended a session that was specifically about creating brave spaces during Beyond School Hours. If you were there, I'm sure you know the EJS project. Those young people showed up and they really did an amazing job at that session. And what they demonstrated there are really what we all can learn from, right? Is that when you give young people a space, even the most challenging, a youth with the most challenging behavior can really turn around and be your best contributor to what you have in your culture and your environment when you create the culture that makes them feel comfortable to be who they are and to tap into their skills and abilities to, not be so hyper focused on what they can't do, right? But really be focused on what they can do. But what I noticed, so there were a number of things in that session, and I'm just going to share what I learned because it was amazing to watch those young people bloom, is that when they were given a challenge, right? They were not just it said, they weren't just told, we're just going to give you these opportunities, but they were given a challenge, right? They were given a set of criteria that they needed to meet, how they needed to show up, how they needed to demonstrate that they were ready to go out and represent their program on, a large scale. Coming to BSH was huge for them. But those young people rose to that challenge. And then when they got to BSH, everything that they had done to prove themselves and earn that opportunity just empowered them to come into the space with all of the adults that were there and really shine. They were able to come up and have conversations with adults in a space where they may have been the only young person in the room. They were able to stand and present what their program was about. They could run down for me a list of all of the different enrichment activities that the EJS project afforded them. They were able to stand, and during the presentation that they did, each of the young persons that were there contributed to that presentation. And so what it said to me is our young people become brave when we set standards for them, hold them accountable, and then give them the opportunity to demonstrate that on a larger scale. They become brave by doing it afraid, just like we do as adults.
That was great, right? Wow, but that's, I'm gonna have to start. But in all seriousness, like when I think about brave, I think about honesty, right? Transparency. And to your point, I'm sure that program definitely established a clear program culture and climate where youth feel brave because adults are modeling it around them, and so they feel brave enough to, of course, facilitate a workshop with so many adults over a number of days in a space that is outside their program. And so again, like making sure you have a structure in your program where you can support brave behavior, but again, transparency, right? In order for us to hold youth accountable, there needs to be some transparency with a lot of the things that we do, including policies that may be in place, but also transparent in what is happening around us, but also within programming that may affect how youth participate in our program, right? So them seeing transparency being modeled, that will help them to be transparent and have those brave conversations, or commit to brave acts in doing the things that make them successful citizens, right?
Mhm.
Because our youth who participate in our OST programs, the goal is for them to go out there and be the best global citizen wherever they end up. Whether they're staying within their hometown, or maybe they're jumping to another state. We have some folks who may be moving to a different country, and so what are the skills that you are able to help youth practice and master in your program that'll allow them to not only be safe in the program, but at conferences like beyond school hours and beyond into society, so that they can, of course, spread the bravery among the groups and the communities that they will essentially form on their own outside of programming.
Love that. And the other thing you said it is that vulnerability and transparency. That is so important. And not just us requiring it of our youth, but us giving it to our youth, right? Being honest that, your behavior is not acceptable. It is challenging for me to deal with that behavior that you're exhibiting. But I recognize, and I heard the young people say this multiple times, that you're not a bad child. You're just a child doing bad things. And that that has a completely different impact on a young person than saying that they're bad, right? But recognizing that you're separating that young person from what they're doing lets that young person know that they can move beyond it, right? And then it gives them a little bit of incentive to say, you know what, that is not who I am. Let me step into who I know I can be, and not really get stuck in that space because I've been labeled, right? And people have told me this is who I am, so I'm just going to live up to that. Tell a young person that they can do great things and let them live up to that.
Yeah, right. That makes me think about growth, right? What are programs doing right now to support growth? Not just a growth mindset, but how are they able to grow the skills that they need and apply it in different spaces? So, I always think about consequences, right? You talk about holding youth accountable. They know what to expect in the program setting because it's been drilled into them, right? They know what to expect in their schools because, again, spent some time there. But once they graduate from school or they age out of your program, right? How should they grow into the young adults who will be out in society, right? How are those skills manifesting in different spaces? And so making sure our programs provide that opportunity for them to, get kind of real world experience of what this could be, but it's also still safe for them to take those risks so that they know, okay, I probably shouldn't do this in this new space. And just really just applying it in different spaces. Like I see it all the time in workforce programs, right? We talk about transferable skills, and it doesn't just end with work, right, or employability. There's also skills that are needed for social interactions and critical thinking skills, right, with
Which are very
technology.
crucial, like
Absolutely.
in today's world, right?
Yes, absolutely. So again, like you're thinking about how you're bringing in the intentionality around building those skills so that they can grow, become global citizens, but also how do you know what they actually need if you aren't already creating a safe space for them to be brave, make those connections, voice their opinions, look forward to how you're implementing the things that they're sharing. And I think that's really important. And that's something that I feel like any program can do. It's all about what makes sense for your program, right? Because there are a lot of OSC programs that are very unique, right? We definitely don't want a cookie cutter OST program, And again, OST settings very, very unique, right? We're not saying, go out there and buy this new curriculum so you can practice critical thinking skills, right? It's all about how what does critical thinking look like for your program, and how can you build on those skills or help you, make those connections outside of your program.
Awesome.
Well, we've talked a little bit about youth belonging and engagement and connecting with the youth. Let's transition to how do we connect with schools and families and other areas of the community. And as we go through this, folks, if you have any questions at any time, just put them in the chat and we'll come back to them towards the end. So First question is, what programming aspect makes an OST program stand out when applying for grants?
I'm gonna go first.
Go.
After working with a number of program providers, I've noticed that a lot of programs are just really up close to how their program operate. And if you take a step back, you may notice that your programs solve a certain problem, right? They usually, address, sometimes like it's academics or sometimes it's, addressing problems with a certain population, right? Now, what would make that program stand out is how you communicate what or how you're solving that problem, right? So, making sure you have a shared language on how you're communicating your problem, because I've noticed so far, especially as you apply for different grants, they have different problems that they want to address, right? Or special priorities. And so, if you can communicate or speak the language of the grant on how you can operate or meet that need or how you are addressing that problem, that's a great first step. And of course, we always talk about like documents, right? How to improve it. Do you have evidence of you solving this problem effectively? And if you receive this grant, what would be that unique piece that is not only, benefiting your program, but accelerating that grant's goal and achieving whatever the short, mid, or long-term goal may be.
Love that. Love that. And what I would add to that, Shanika, and I do 100% agree with all of that you just said. I would just add that connection is really important. Connection to the community, connection to organizations within the community, connection to groups that particular entity, funding organization is aware of, understands, and if they don't understand them, then providing them with some insight and information about them. I think a lot of times, like you said, we're so close to the work, we're just entrenched in it, and oftentimes don't explain the value and the significance of these organizations that we run, that we're a part of, that we're connected to, when we're applying to the grant. And so the reader reads the words that you put on the page, but they have nothing to connect that to, right? And so really being able to provide specific language that anyone could understand, whether they're familiar with your program or not, whether they understand out of school time or not, whether they're an educator or not, right? Really understanding that you need to give people the basic information about what you're relaying in a grant, and not speak in language that is only familiar to you and those that are a part of your environment. I think that's so important. And being able to then share the impact of your connectedness, right? Being able to share how your reach in the community has impacted others, and then helps to advance the goals that are important to that funder are the other really, really big piece, right? It's don't just be so focused on saying how wonderful you are and how wonderful your program is, and absolutely, we believe that. We're with you on that. We're not saying you're not wonderful, but go beyond being wonderful to being resourceful, to being an asset to the goals that funder is seeking to meet. Making sure that you're explicit in how you're doing that, explicit in what qualifications you and your team possess to advance that cause. Those things are going to take you very, very far when applying for grants. I don't think you have to, be a program that can do backflips and fly around the world and cross the ocean by swimming. But I do think you need to articulate well what you do well, and then be able to connect that to the goals and the priorities that the funder has set.
Absolutely. I mean, like you definitely need a plan to do all those great things, right? I also noticed that sometimes when we look at grants, we sometimes skip over the ones that we feel we do not connect well with. And that goes back to language, right? So not just being able to communicate well what you do well, but also what is the grant asking for and how does that connect back to what you can actually do? So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Don't keep yourself in a box just because you're an OST, right? There are a number of priorities that you can address in your program. It's just a matter of innovation. right? How can we make these connections? Maybe you need to work with, a couple of folks from your team or consult with your partners to think about how you can expand to address those different priorities that you may not already be addressing too. That's another thing. So we really need to be mindful of our own potential. We do that with our kids, right? We see them, we're like, oh, you have so much potential, so many things. We need to do the same thing with our program.
Mhm. One question that I think a lot of people have asked and are looking at is that how do I establish a meaningful OST relationship with a school principal who may be uninterested?
There may be, I'm going to go back to the priorities,
Okay.
right? Now, school principals are quite busy.
Mhm.
Right? Just gotta get their
Absolutely.
attention.
Yes.
But from what we know, right, many schools and districts, they have a certain set of goals that they are trying to attain. And sometimes the goals of our program may not fall in the high priority areas for some of these schools. And so, what we can do is help make those connections. So, you may not be able to get in front of that school principal, right? Because they will prioritize what they believe is needed to reach that short, mid, or long term goal. But maybe you need to get in front of their secretary or someone from their staff so that you can help them gain the language to share about your program and how it connects back to their goals, right? What are the schools trying to achieve and how can your program bridge that gap so that the principal would want to reach out to you, right? So that's one way. And as I'm sure you have a ton of other ways as well, because you have quite an experience with connecting with folks who may be uninterested at first.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I never view or categorize someone as uninterested. And I think that a lot of it has to do with mindset, right? Just because they don't have or you don't have their attention at this moment, that doesn't mean that you can't get it. Right? And so that's the piece of it for me, that helps me to approach someone who, may not be seeking a conversation with me or may not be showing an active interest in what's happening at my out of school time program. It's not necessarily because they don't care. Oftentimes it's because other things are, a huge priority for them. It might be urgent. They may be dealing with emergencies. So it might not be a lack of interest. I like to think it may just be a lack of time, right? That they just have a lot of things that are a priority. So what does that mean? That means that if you're not disinterested, then all I need to do is show how the priorities that you are most concerned about, which you said, really align with what I'm doing at the program, right? That's what really draws a principal in. It's really looking at what specifically my out of school time program is offering that this particular principal can use. And sometimes it's just a relationship, right? You see parents when after school, when they're picking up their children or when you're holding events in the evenings, and that principal may not ever have that opportunity, right? Because they're with those children during the school day, right? And so the principal may see you as a valuable way to connect with parents, right? They may see the work that you're doing aligns with helping the students earn or build skills that they're struggling with building during the school day, right? So just identifying what is that thing that I have to offer that principal that will draw some attention in the direction of my program. And so it may not be a lack of interest. It might just be that they haven't seen what you need to show them, right? And that is that your program will serve their interests and really help to advance the goals that they've set. The other thing that I would say is that it is really important to just make the information about your program readily available, right? So it may mean, that you may just say, all right, we're going to put this information into the hands of someone adjacent to the principal, or you may say, we're going to just make sure it's in a place where if the principal ever looks, they will see it, right? And so it's really about making sure that you don't fall into the shadows by your own actions, right? By your own failure to make sure that that information about your program is accessible. So that is the biggest, I think, thing that you can do that requires you don't have to feel rejected because they said no to a meeting or anything like that. Just share the information. Make sure that it's accessible. It might be through a newsletter. It might be by getting on an agenda for something that you know that a principal will be present at, right? It may be by having some sort of display if you're using their school building, asking for space where you could display information about your program and what the students in your program are doing. It really is, the field is open, right? You be creative, like you said, Shanika, be innovative, right? Come up with a great way to present that information, and whether or not you have that direct connection, it's still accessible to a principal who will see it when they need to see it and connect with you the way that they need to, so that you both can help to serve the young people as best you can.
Yeah. And that reminds me of what you said earlier too, like your relationships, right? How you are building them, your presence in the community, that maybe the space where the principals will see, the impact of your work. It also goes back to what makes our OST program so unique, right? What are you doing differently? It's being seen in multiple places and spaces. And so,
and I want to give an example of that. I was working with an out of school time program, and we actually were just doing an event for families one evening, and we invited nursing students who were a part of a program that was nearby, and they just wanted to come and talk about health in general, give general nutrition tips, those kinds of things. But when we did that, we actually drew the attention of the folks within the school building that were trying to promote health, and they had these wonderful free resources that they were trying to share, and they couldn't get it into the hands of the parents. And so when they realized, oh wait, you do that too, so then that created a partnership for us, and then that partnership, of course, got the recognition of the principal, because he's finding out from his staff, well, how did you make this happen when you've been struggling to get this done all this time, right? And so it's just something that small where they just happened to come to our evening event. They just happened to see that these nursing students were there. It sparked an idea for them, and then it got us a school day connection that helped us to get a linkage to the principal. And I think that those kinds of opportunities are around us all the time. All we have to do is take advantage.
Yes. Perfect. Story gems. I love it.
So staffing and workforce. Big thing that a lot of people and a lot of programs everywhere are dealing with. So what should I be thinking about when it comes to hiring staff to work in OST?
Definitely have to think outside the box. And I know Debbie's leaving us. Hey, Debbie. Debbie was one of our panelists, and we were talking about professionalizing the OST space.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right? Thinking outside the box, right? You will find the individuals with the most potential, folks who are passionate about the field and they don't even know it just yet, right? To come to your program. But I do want to highlight something that was shared by Dr. Minnie from the Boys and Girls Club in Maryland. Right? She said, hire what you can't teach.
Love it. Love it.
And I love it, right? And we're talking about, yes, I can teach you how to, use different platforms and how to upload the hours for skill development, but I cannot teach you to be passionate for the youth, right? So I still think about what she said, even to this day. But on top of that, as we think about hiring, we also should be very intentional about how we support our staff once they are hired, right? Because one thing that we do notice with our work is that there is high staff turnover. And so if you are prepared to hire, you should also be prepared to support. And if you do not have that capacity, it's all about, tapping into the resources that you do have access to. But that should be a plan that is built out intentionally with what you have and what you can connect to, so that the folks that you hire, because you're thinking outside the box, right? You may be hiring a grandparent. folks from the community. You may have an employer who is now a part-time staff or a volunteer, and they do not know youth development principles, but they're passionate about the work, right? They want to reach back and move things forward with the youth, and so they are physically there to carry the mission forward, but how, right? So definitely be mindful of the support, right? Be not just, during programming or during the startup period, and then you're like, all right, that's it. I'll see you next summer, just thinking about it from in phases, right? What does it look like to be successful, a successful staff in your program, from entry level to, an experienced person, maybe 2 years in, what does that look like? What does your support look like for them? But also opportunities for growth. So definitely keep that in mind as you hire. I'm just gonna we'll start with that, and then we'll just continue to build on it. And
I love that. I love that. But the last thing you said really stood out to me. And it's something that I learned early. I was a summer camp director in my early 20s, and we won't talk about how long ago that was. But what I will say is the thing that I learned as a summer camp director for a museum in a museum setting was I'm like, where do I start? Like, I don't have a captive audience anywhere. I'm not, I don't have students nearby. I'm not working at a school where there are teachers in the building. I had none of that at my fingertips. And what I learned is that once you identify folks that have a passion, a shared passion, it's just like, what you said, once they have that passion for engaging, for engagement, for teaching, for learning, if they're lifelong learners, they're also going to make great individuals to work in our spaces, because not only are they there to give, they're there to receive. And then once they receive, they're just going to turnkey. They're going to continue to give that out. And so I learned very, very young as a manager that I needed to create a structure that allowed individuals to grow into where they needed or what they needed to become, what their desire was. So I started off with counselors. I had junior and senior counselors, but I created all kinds of positions. I created a position for individuals to test activities for me throughout the school year. I created a supply crew for those people that didn't necessarily want to engage with the students on a regular basis, but they wanted to make sure that everything was orderly, that things were cleaned up, that things were set up. I had a team that came in and just did break relief. They didn't want to be with a group all day, but they liked moving throughout and supporting the different teams throughout the course of the day. And so it really is about you building a team and a structure that allows you to attract people to the work that you're doing and give what they're capable of giving, right? Don't be so focused on, I need this and I need a person that can give me all of this, right? But think about what are the ways that I can separate these tasks so that I can allow individuals to come into the organization with specific strengths, give those things, and then leave the other things to someone else, because that's fine too, as long as the young people get everything they need. And it created for me and for our young people a village. And it was a wonderful thing because they had lots of different people that they could relate to for different things and in different areas. The other thing that I recognized that I needed to do is really create a pathway for individuals that came in. So I had volunteers that came in. Usually the high school students were volunteers for me. And they came in as volunteers, and then they had a path to move up to a junior senior, to a senior counselor, to a junior counselor, and then to a senior counselor. And then I had those other positions that they could also move into. I had college students that came. My very first work study student that worked for me at the Franklin Institute came to me one day, and they were like, I have all these work study hours that I need to do. I'm looking for a place to do them. I have no idea where to do them. And he came back every year, every single year. He became an asset to the team because he helped me to establish systems and patterns, because it was his work study hours, but he created a project for himself and he just went with it from year to year. So it really is about being innovative, being flexible, and allowing people to work in the areas that make the most sense for their needs. They need to feel, your staff needs to feel like they're growing, that they're moving forward, and that you're providing for them a foundation that they can build on, just like we did with this question. We just started with a foundation and just kept building. Amazing. Oh, and then the last thing I do want to say, I had young people who were a part of the summer program, came back every year, of course, because they loved it. But then when they aged out, they were too old to participate. They became staff members. They came back, they volunteered for the year after they couldn't, and then they became staff members. They told their friends came, and they became staff members. And so it really creates a pipeline of individuals that can come into your program if you treat them well, you provide them the support that they need so that they can thrive and grow and gain the skills that they feel are valuable to them as individuals. You won't even have to. The recruitment process was a breeze after a while because I had people asking me all year, when is the application open? How do I apply? And that's the place that you can get to when you create a culture for growth and for development for your team as well as for your youth.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because sometimes, and it happens, right? Especially when we're crunched for time, when we hire, we think about just having a body in that space.
That's
right. So I'm happy that you brought up pathways, right? We're trying to expand the field. It is a professional field, and a lot of the people who are a part of the OSC field, it wasn't their initial plan.
Right.
Right. We have folks who, some were, bored and like, well, what else can I do and support the community? Next thing you know, they're operating a whole program for the entire region, right? Because they realize this is the space that I love and I'm creating impact, you know what I mean? So I really like that you brought up pathways, right? And I think it's really important for us to just reflect what are we doing currently in our program that would expand this pathway into the OSC field, right? It's not just about how you hire, but like who are you interacting with, including youth, like you mentioned, because they may also be, to your point, potential staff for your program. So I think that's great. Did we get you help questions?
Yes, I believe so. And I think we even had, I believe, Nicole in the chat was like, love that, and like love all caps. So
awesome. I do want to say one more thing because this really stood out to me when I did a university-based out of school time programming. So we did after school and Saturday, and then we did summer. And our summer program was a 6-week residential program, which was quite a joy. We had the youth for 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. But anyway, let's keep going. What I will say is because I was doing that in a university setting, I started looking first at education majors. But then I had folks from all across the majors that were like, I want to be a part of this program. Tell me what I need to do. And so it goes back to, again, what Miss Minnie said, right? That hire what you can't teach, right? Because we could teach them the basic on how to relate to the young people, on how to teach certain skills, how to do tutoring. We could teach them those things. But their interest and their excitement about engaging with the next generation, about being that near peer that a young person could go to, about mentorship, because that's really what drew them to the program. Those kinds of things are what you want to make sure that you're hiring for. And some of my best staff members were not education majors, some of the most impactful, and the ones who young people now, a decade later, are still engaged with and still call them a mentor, are those young people that were not education majors, but they took the time to invest in the young people because it was something that they just wanted to do as a good human, a good member of our society, that we trained, so that they didn't make any major missteps with the young people. But it made a huge difference. One of them actually changed their major altogether, became a high school principal, became a CEO of a charter school. I mean, did amazing things after his experience. And he came in thinking he was going to law school.
What a shift. And they're investing in the youth because you invested in them. So love that story. More gems.
One of many. One of many.
As we move in, we're going to move into our last strand, which is funding, sustainability, and advocacy. So when running a 21st CCLC after school program, data is everything and it's ever changing, right? What is a strategy you use to keep yourself informed and make sure you're meeting requirements for programming? How do you or would you inform your staff of any areas that need some attention and or celebrate gains and goals that are met?
That was a lot of layers, Scarlett.
Yes.
So please let me know if I missed anything. But what I will say, I attended Beyond School Hours, the conference, before I came to Foundations to work, because I know the gathering in spaces with people who understand the work and are a part of the work is super important. So coming into these spaces where there are gatherings, whether it's a conference, a meeting, a community event, but wherever there are gatherings of individuals who understand the work, who are doing the work alongside of you. You might not work in the same program, you might not even work in the same state, but you're working shoulder to shoulder because you understand that there is legislation, there are movements that are happening, there are just things that are happening in the culture, the subculture, for whether it be teens or for younger children. Mental health is one of those things that we all are paying so close attention to. We understand the impact that it has because we're seeing it no matter where our programs are. And so it is so important to gather with those individuals, to find for yourself a network of people that you can just run ideas by and say, hey, is this happening for you in your state or your city? Is this happening for you at your program across the city, wherever that might be? So there are listservs, there are conferences, there are networks, there are regional gatherings. Those are places where I definitely made sure that I found myself on a regular basis, collecting information, talking to peers, expanding my network, making sure that I'm on LinkedIn, right? And connected to people who are doing similar work so that if I have a question, I could just pose the question to one of my peers on in a quick message, and see what they're thinking or see what their experience is, and connect with them about what makes sense for them and resources. I found that there's a lot of opportunity, missed opportunity, to just connect with people who are doing work that could enhance what we're doing, just because we haven't reached out. So I made sure, and continue to make sure that I reach out, that I connect, that I go up to a stranger in a space where, we're all gathered together and I get to know what they're doing and I meet them and learn about what their challenges and struggles are. And then I'll connect people to other people that I know as well, because that's so important too, right? You connecting someone to someone else doing work that's similar, that may not even involve you, will open those doors for you as well, because they'll think of you when that opportunity comes that makes better sense for you so that you can stay connected to your work, and they'll share a resource or shoot you a link that they think would be helpful to you. So it really is about using your network, expanding your network, going to those spaces, finding yourself in those places where you can learn more, learn from peers, learn from people who've been doing it longer, learn from people who have been doing it not long at all, right? There are lessons you can learn from everyone. And I feel like every opportunity that you have where you meet a new person, you can certainly learn. It's great. It's just me.
Yeah. And you know what? I love that. So anytime I hear anything 21st century related, I think about different measures that, you would have to address. Now, my biggest thing, no matter what, especially when we think about getting our staff on board, folks are afraid of data sometimes, yes, but they don't need to be. When we have plans in place, it is extremely important that those plans are implemented well, because they lead to evidence, which then informs data that we could use to continue funding. Right? Or even that evidence can be used to extend your program, right? Or in 21st century programs, we think about, uniform guidance. There is something in there that talks about tapping into partnerships with different departments to address different needs, right? So if you have a plan in place, especially with your program, make sure that plan is being implemented well or with fidelity so that you can collect the evidence that you need to communicate that to the partners of 21st century grants, meeting those requirements, but also extending different parts of your program so that you can reach the youth in multiple ways. So that's number one for me, because we all know 21st century, there's a lot of different things, right? Especially thinking about the state that you are in, right? Those requirements will look different. We know that some states report out on different measures. And so making sure you stay on top of those state meetings and asking questions, right? You have your program officers or support team, like ask those questions, make sure that you are in a good place with your data, right? If you're collecting it well, that's another thing too. Are we accurately reporting? But also thinking about, how you can incorporate into your plan a process where you can review that data to inform enhancements, right? Because sometimes the things that we enhance right away without the input of a monitoring event or, an observation is great, right? That's always a first step to improving your work, but also meeting those requirements that may not be something that you're able to do if everyone on your team isn't on the same page.
Did we answer the question? Because
I believe so. It was a long question, but I think all of everything.
It was a heavy.
But it's very important. It's right. It's important things for folks to be able to take away and to hear different perspectives on how to, do exactly what you both said, how to follow through with that and how to build those connections and showcasing that data and the importance of it and what to do with it. So thank you. That brings us to the end. I am going to put something on the screen for everybody. And as I am doing that, I'm going to ask you a final question. Because of all of these things that we've talked about today, all coming from BSH. There might be people in the audience that have not gone to BSH. So what is a takeaway if they've never gone? What is something that you would say to people who haven't gone before, but something that could get them to come? What are they going to get at BSH, especially for 2027? What is an encouraging thing you could say to them?
You can learn any and everything, honestly, if you ask me. I don't know how to stay, I don't want to be biased, but from my experience from a lot of conferences I was able to attend, this space isn't just for educators.
Oh, that's good.
Right. And in our programs, we talked about this earlier, our staff make up a lot of different folks, different backgrounds. And one of the things that we do well is have those sessions and exhibitors and networking opportunities for folks who don't just see themselves as educators. They may see themselves as youth support specialists. They may see themselves as parents. They see themselves as an advocate. They see themselves as a leader in their community. They see themselves as a number of things. And so there is a little bit of everything for everyone, literally.
I love that. I would say that Beyond School Hours is a conference not to miss because you will never know what you missed if you don't come. And it is the most amazing place to gather information that you never even knew you were missing out on. And that was the thing that struck me so much the first time that I came. I had no idea that there was this whole community of people that are rich with information, with experience, with tools and resources, many of them at no or low cost that I did not have access to because I was not in this space before. So for me, I think that's the reason to come to Beyond School Hours, because there are things that you are not going to get if you don't come into this space among this group of people, and you'll have a blast because it is a lot of fun. Everyone is there and just so willing to help and to support and to help you to get connected to what is going to help you to be the best professional that you can be at Beyond School Hours. It's just a great space where folks that are coming from everywhere, coming from all different types of backgrounds and experiences, are just in a single space with a single mind. We're all here to learn, to grow, to share, and to strengthen one another wherever we can. So that's what I would say about it.
On a national level.
Yes.
Right? How often do you get that opportunity?
And a little bit of international as well.
Yeah.
A little bit.
International.
A little bit.
International.
A little bit.
Well, thank you both for sharing all of your insights and answering these questions. I've enjoyed our time together today. Thank you all for being here. I did drop in the chat. This is our feedback form. If you could just please grab that link before you head out and complete that feedback form. Our goal is to really meet your needs. We really value that. So please keep that in mind as you're completing this form. A certificate of attendance will be sent within a week to all those attended live and completed the survey, and we hope you'll join us for our next session. So I'm also going to have that on screen. You can see all of that for our BSH. We hope to see you next year in New Orleans. Scan the QR code, check out the link, and we'll see you in our next section.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for being here.